Dr. David Bull is in the house.
Oh, bless you, bless you. That's the best introduction I've ever had, Jeremy. Thank you very much indeed. And of course, you forgot Finn in your great team, by the way.
Well, I was about to say...
When you were talking about Ryan and Jodie, you forgot Finn.
Finn? Well, he's not on this show.
Well, he just said hello.
Oh, did he? Yeah. I know that I always do a big introduction because I know you like a big hand on your entrance, don't you, DB?
Well, quite right, quite right. Look, so let me just tell you very quickly. As you know, I'm not really a politician. I'm a broadcaster by training, but obviously have gone into politics. Last night I was in Newcastle, and someone said to me, "You're really unusual because you answer the question." And actually, we need more politicians to answer the question. Just going back to Donald Trump, I think he is remarkable, actually. He is a deal maker. He was there. He stands up to bullies. He was determined to get this deal across the line. And it looks like he's done that. And I admire that, actually. And
is he the greatest man that's ever walked the political planet in America or the world? Or have I gone a little bit over the top there?
Well, I think if I say that and it means that I get to meet him, then the answer is yes.
I mean, that would be amazing, wouldn't it, to meet the guy? But no, a lot of people say to me, Jez, you're missing the point. I know the man is flawed, but there's a point that I wanted... The reason I started like that is, and let's talk about Nigel Farage, because the latest opinion polls, you were telling me earlier, I think, about the way the support for Farage and for reform is building across the country and not within the demographics that you would perhaps ever have considered across the whole range. But the thing about politics, and I say it every day, in my mind is... It's so sanitised and so orchestrated, it appears to me, and so based on what, you know, a focus group tells you to see. I see all these politicians, even Badenoch. Yesterday, we'll talk stamp duty in a minute. It's red. Starmer, it's red. With Nigel Farage, I always get the distinct feeling, a bit Trump-esque. He'll say something, and there might be people behind him going, oh, God. But it's what he feels at that moment, DB. Do you agree with me on that?
Yeah, I do agree with you. And of course, I'm one of those people sometimes with my hand in my head, my head in my hands. Look, I mean, I think he's a really unusual man. Nigel thinks, he will tell you exactly what he thinks. He has the most incredible sort of nous, the feel for the electorate, just in terms of how well we're doing. And I know this isn't a party political broadcast on behalf of Reform UK, but let's take Newcastle, where I was last night. We're polling at 33% across the country, right? So if there was a general election today, we would have anything between 373 seats up to 400 seats, giving us a parliamentary majority of 47 to 67, 77 or whatever. Now, Newcastle's fascinating because it is a tribally, traditionally Labour seat. We are not polling at 33% in Newcastle. We are polling at 36% in Newcastle.
And you know, I spend a lot of time in Newcastle, and I can tell you that the one thing about the people of Newcastle, and I would say this about many people, because, of course, Starmer came to power, it was all about, like, you know, the working man. I spend tons of time in Newcastle with all sorts of people, successful businessmen and people just that I know, right? And they all say the same thing. The Labour Party doesn't talk for us, the working man and woman, anymore. And that, for me, is what the next... And if it's Nigel, that's great. If it's not, then it'll be somebody else. People need to... I think politicians need to connect with their audience far greater.
I would agree. And actually, I've just come from a business lunch here in Leeds with some really impressive people who have voted Labour in the past. They voted Conservative in the past. I talked about the fact that employers' national insurance is hammering their businesses, energy costs, for example. And these are people who will vote according to how it actually will benefit their businesses. And these people are now backing us because we are not afraid to say, we talked about the care sector, for example, and I said, stop importing cheap labour. Let's train British people to go into those jobs, but also let's teach them those skills. But let's pay care workers properly, because if you can actually solve the social care crisis in this country, and the way we treat elderly people, by the way, is disgraceful in this country. If we can solve that, I think we can solve the NHS problems.
I've long argued
discharge people out.
I've long argued, and this is brilliant. Nicky in Slough, tell David we miss him, but most of all, I miss his shirts at the weekend. As a legend. Can I just say, through the glass, a radio legend, forget you, bully, Frank Skinner has literally just walked into... I'm slightly in awe. How are you, Frankie boy? Look at you coming in. coming in. David, don't go anywhere.
Has he got a shirt on?
He's got a shirt in. Frank Skinner will join David. Bully, can I just say one thing, though, about Farage? Frank Skinner, just come in, me old son. It's lovely to see you. Lovely. All right. David, don't go anywhere. I know you're in a hurry. We've got David Bull, chairman of Reform UK, the party that's taken this country by storm. Frank Skinner, where have you been, son?
Well, I've only nipped in for a DNA test.
Have you? Well, the results are in, and you know your father. He's not your father.
Oh, no.
Frankie, that was a different life, son. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. You look great.
Honestly, mate, I haven't moved my face in 15 years. Don't look bad, do I, for 60?
You look... 60's young for me, remember?
How old are you now, kiddo?
68.
You look great, mate.
I was born 12 years after Hitler died. That's what I like.
So you can't... You weren't part of the Hitler Youth that Farage was accused of.
I literally dodged a bullet.
Give us a word of wisdom, because I'm in the middle of this interview. Tell me something I should know about Frank Skinner that people don't know.
I truly, truly care about the underdog.
That's why you've come to say hello to me, haven't you?
Exactly, yeah. I just want you to know that
Pleasure,
I'm still happy to speak to you.
I love you, Frank. It's great to see you, buddy. Look after you. Still wearing a leather jacket, looking cool. You need to push the door, mate, not pull it.
Usually people open it for me.
I know. Good luck in prison. Lovely to see you. Frank Skinner, walking in on drive. Fantastic. Sorry about that, bully. You're back.
Oh, not at all. What you need on your show is discipline and order, which is what I had on Weekend Breakfast, Jeremy.
I think so. This is a great question for David Bull. Adam Atkinson. On Trump, the orange man baby, could you ask David Bull? He has Scottish blood, does Donald Trump. Do you think we could get him to run for reform for Parliament when his second term ends by claiming that he's got English blood in him? What do you make of it?
Well, it's really interesting. We have amazing people coming forward to be candidates, and obviously they have to be vetted properly. So I would take a view on Donald Trump. I mean, it's a really interesting point, actually. And going back to something I talked about at lunch, which was in this party, I want people to be in charge of departments who've actually got some experience. How about having a doctor or a nurse running the NHS? How about having someone who's actually run a business, being in charge of being business secretary, for example? It seems extraordinary to me that you become a member of Parliament. 1 minute you're head of defence and then you're head of the NHS. It makes no sense at all. So actually, I would welcome people like Donald Trump, who is a businessman, who actually has experience of getting deals over the line, who knows actually how to run a company, whether it's a small company, a big company. I think actually having sort of that whole basket of talents would be a good thing.
And I agree with you. If you look at the Labour front bench, they've gone from university to sort of either the Fabian Society, or they've gone to a think tank, and then they've gone to local councils, and they've never done. And the one thing that you would look at reform right now and you'd go, well, Richard Tyre, successful businessman. Nigel, successful businessman. You, a broadcaster. To me, successful businessman, male model.
But I did run a business.
But the point is, if you look at... You're so right what you just said. I was looking at Grant Shapps the other day. The guy was Home Secretary for 7 days, Defence Secretary for 3 months, and then sent to the next job. And you think, well, where are the expertise? And also, one of the big things asked about reform repeatedly on this station is, you say you'll be able to take on the blob, you say that you've got the will and you'll do this, but actually the more experienced people, I guess, would have more of the ability to stand up to those dumb blob civil servants who seem to rule the roost left, right and centre. I think it's a really important point.
It is. We were talking about the NHS actually over lunch. 280 billion quid goes in every single year. That's 11.7% of GDP. And yet our cancer survival rate's far worse than the rest of Europe. Now, so the money's going in at the top. Why is it not hitting the bottom? Because no one who's actually running these actually knows what they're doing. Now, we have got some great business managers in them, but we've got all this middle management who waltz around with clipboards doing absolutely nothing as far as I can see. I have no idea the lines of command. When my mum was in hospital, I didn't know who the doctors were, the nurses were, the patients weren't fed. All of this stuff is really, really basic. And one of the lines that I use when I'm speaking, and I feel really passionately about this, is I kind of want to bring back matron. I want to bring back that sort of authoritarian figure who rules the ward, who knows everything that goes on that ward. And when I trained, and when I was a junior doctor, woe betide you if you cross matron, because she was in charge.
My mother was a nurse, and I would agree with you. This is interesting. Sue from Essex. I want to talk to you about Kemi Badenoch in a minute. Jezza, tell David and your listeners, for me, Nigel Farage talks to you, Starmer and other politicians talk at you. I think that's a really great analogy. And it'll be very interesting to see how... I mean, look, let's take yesterday. The Tory party conference. I got into a bit of trouble on Friday, which will make you smile. I asked somebody who I was interviewing, one of the MPs, if they'd all come together, including the guests, in a minibus, because it only looked like 11 people were there. But Kemi Badenoch, today in the papers, quite a lot of positive stuff written about her announcement about stamp duty. It's a right to own your home. Apparently even members of the shadow cabinet didn't know she was going to announce it. Bit of a bubble there. Will that transfer itself into polling? I don't know. Do you see this as the beginning of a resurgence, or is that just a light bulb moment for her? What do you think?
No, so I was listening to that speech and I thought there were some very interesting policy announcements, and then I thought, oh, I know why they are, because she's stolen ours. I mean, there was a copy and paste of many of our policies. In terms of the one that you just mentioned, yeah, it's a good policy, but they're not going to be in power. And if you, and sort of talking from where you were about how empty that hall was, that actually people have stopped listening, and that is a huge problem. They're not in a position to form a government, and so they are going to have to take time to rebuild. I think they have to learn what it is to be conservative again. I think they've forgotten all of that. But also it's about actually making sure that young people have aspiration, that they can buy a house, they can go on the jobs ladder, all the rest of it. All of that has been lost from this country. We're importing cheap immigration into this country. We're not putting British people first. I was also talking to a friend I'm with who served in the army. We don't actually look after our military properly. No. There is no sort of pathway out of the military.
And what about ex-service men and women on the streets whilst we're housing illegal migrants in four-star hotels? Drives me mad. I think, I personally think that, and I've said this for a long time, I think the reason a lot of people have moved towards your party is because they seem to be proactive. You seem to be on the front foot. Nigel and your team seem to be able to have the ear of or the finger on the pulse of what's going on. Everybody else seems to be catch-up. In terms of the Tories, I said it yesterday, and I'd love to take your views, by the way, 0344 499 1000. I just feel like the British public stopped listening to them. That's the reason this shower of, I can't say the second word, are in power. Yeah. And I almost feel like the British public will say to the Tories, listen, you're out for 10 years. You've got to deal with your penance. You got us in this mess. And I think it's a trust thing. But building that and sustaining that, that is your next challenge as a party, isn't it? Because you're 3 years and 9 months out. How do you keep that momentum going, David?
Yeah, exactly right. And I've got to find 9,000 candidates to go through vetting to give us about 5,000 candidates to stand in the mayoral elections, in the local elections, and obviously in the parliamentary elections. And I want the best and the brightest to do that. Now, obviously, in terms of being a machine, we're growing really quickly. We started off as this disruptor brand, I suppose, if you were to put that in business terms. We became an SME, a small medium enterprise. We're now going into the next phase of that. And so we need to make sure that we're getting the right people coming across. What we cannot afford to do is to be the Tory party light or Tory party 2.0. And that's why when I see 50% of people who voted Labour are now voting for us, that is very exciting. When I see 40% of people voting for us did not go to university, that is also exciting. These are the plumbers, the carpenters, the electricians, the manual skilled people. And Tony Blair has a lot to answer for by saying 50% of kids need to go to university, because that was a terrible mistake right from the beginning. And then when I look at the demographic, 60% of our voters being under the age of 50, that for me is very exciting, because it means that as they come of age and they can vote, we will then increase our vote share. So we have to develop policies. One of the other things is we can give you a direction of travel, but we can't give you the details on those policies, because they will basically get nicked. And the problem that we have is I've got to do all of this really rapidly. We've got elections in Wales and in Scotland next year. We're polling really well in Wales at 28%. We're polling well in Scotland at 22%. So we're making incredible gains across the United Kingdom. So we have to keep the pressure up. Last night, I did this event, and I said, is there anyone in this room who will stand up for their country, stand up to stand? And I got 35 to 40 people standing up in a room in a working men's club in Newcastle. And I think that says a lot.
I'll tell you what also says a lot is Sasha in Cheshire. Is this about Mr. Bull? David Bull, is it? Right, you'll love this. This is about reform. Sasha, go.
I'm a teacher, and I couldn't agree more with what you and Dr. David Bull have been saying, which is it's so important to have people running departments that they know about. The education sector hasn't had somebody running it for a long time that even knows anything about the problems that are going on and importantly, what to do about it. So to have somebody in politics who actually knows the industry, knows the sector, understands the challenges that are faced is just worth its weight in gold. And if that's something that Reform is looking at, that just makes me want to vote for them even more, because it's such a key part, I think, of having a proper functioning government.
I'll tell you what I find very interesting by Sasha's comment, and what I hear a lot, and I know you've got to skedaddle, but here's the thing. A lot of people will say about Reform, oh, they're not experienced politicians. What's he going to do? What Trump did, bring his business friends in. The truth of the matter is, a generation of politicians have let this country down. And I don't, we had the expense scandal and all of that. What I find really interesting is we've been through this stage, David, where people are not inspired by politicians. They're very judgmental, and quite rightly. But there's a difference now. The British people have woken up to the situation they're in. There is I don't like the word movement, but I think we're at a seminal moment in our history. And I think that there's a point where people are going, the silent majority, actually our voice is important. And I think that woman's right. Nigel Farage is one of those people that you can stand and go, yeah, absolutely, because he's not flawless, is he, for God's sake? That's the way it is.
And also, at the beginning of this journey, there were lots of people we call shy reformers, people who would vote for us but don't want to tell their mates. That era is now over. People are openly saying they're going to vote for us. And I think there's strength in numbers. When you see other people who will vote for us, you are then able to put your head above the parapet and say you're going to vote. When I look at the letters I'm now getting, the emails I'm getting from consultant surgeons, from nurses, from physios, from people who worked in our forces saying, can I help? Can I develop policy? That, for me, is brilliant. And now I have to funnel this expertise and turn it into policy.
It's interesting, mate, that you even have time to talk to us. But I know, you listen...
I always have time for you.
You're very kind. They all miss you. They're all going, bring back the bully. We love a bit of bully in the afternoon. David, we're now busy, mate. We love that you take the time to speak to us. Thank you so much indeed. Dr. David Ball, Chairman of Reform UK.